Hi, I'm Rob Norman. Welcome to the Beat Retreat. We're here in New York. I'm with my great friend, Babs Rangaiah from IBM iX, longtime CPG marketing veteran and expert and leader. And we're here, Babs, to talk about the blockchain.
Yes.
So I think that the blockchain is the teenage sex of its moment. Lots of people talking about it and not that many people really understanding it or doing it well. Help me out.
That's a good line. Yeah, I mean, I think there's, I actually heard a great, even better line, which is blockchain is everything you don't understand about finance and everything you don't understand about computers combined.
Wow, okay. So let's break it down. So let's break down what the fundamentals of the blockchain are.
Yeah. So it's a distributed ledger. I mean, basically what it does is allow you to, in any transaction, be able to move data from block to block. It's immutable, meaning it can't be changed, and it traces everything back to its provenance. So, you know, there are a number of things you can do with it. I have some great ways that we're using it. So to your point about the fact that, you know, everyone's talking about it, no one's doing it, you know, we have over 400 use cases with blockchain.
So when I read about blockchain and try and understand it commercially, the thing I find easiest to understand is examples about what I would call high-value, slow-moving objects. So shipping containers that are somewhere in the world, or diamonds that are somewhere in the world, where the necessity to understand that provenance and have security over origin and ownership is kind of key to that. So presumably you do things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can give you two great ones. So with, in retail, for example, Walmart is building these big box retailers in China. They want to, and the biggest revenue source in China is actually pork. Apparently the Chinese eat more pork than anyone in the world. So they want to make sure that the pork goes through the same protocols that it would in the US or anywhere else, that it goes through all the steps that it takes. So we actually built a blockchain for pork in China to track from the time the pig is being bred all the way until the time that it actually gets packaged and put into the store.
So it can validate process and procedure and a kind of digital checklist manifesto, if you like, as well as straightforward provenance of goods and objects.
That's right. I mean, we do it also for mangoes coming from Central America to the U.S. I mean, one of the things that happens, if anyone ever gets sick in the past, you remember when there was the spinach outbreak, someone, you know, gets sick from one piece of spinach at some store, and they got to pull all the spinach from everywhere because they don't know where it originated from, where the disease might have come from. Whereas here you can find the specific batch in a specific farm and be able to just pull the spinach or whatever, in this case pork or mangoes, from that particular farm or that particular area.
So without sort of getting too tortured and into the detail, what are we talking about in terms of the kind of physical aspects of this? So I get the idea that there is a farm or a plantation growing mangoes. Yeah. What's attached in the end, either to the mango? It's not like an RFID chip and a mango, right? It's
RFID
else.
with the pigs.
Right. Okay. Now give me mangoes. I do.
Yeah. So the mangoes are more by the batch. It is a device that's attached to the batch. Other things with humans we do with iris. Other things are just on the data specific. So on the advertising one, we code the actual data. So if you have, you know, we did a blockchain for media with Unilever earlier in the year, where we were literally tracking the ads because of all the different players in the programmatic mix now, and to understand where that money goes. So if there's $1 leaving the market, and it used to be 85 cents, gets to the publisher, and now it's 30 cents, where's all that money going? So to provide total transparency to the chain.
Now, so that's an interesting area. So I make a statement that says slow-moving, high-value objects seem like the ideal use case. Yeah. You move that out into what's obviously a different kind of high-value object, like the pork supply chain, because if someone dies, knowing what, knowing the billion not to recall is as important as knowing the 1 to recall is interesting. Now, the digital advertising business, I guess, is most easily characterized by being billions of super fast-moving, individually very low-value objects. And the blockchain today can deal with that on a kind of batch basis, on a reflective basis, or a real-time basis. Where are we in that sort of process now?
Well, it is very, very early.
Right.
I think the potential is huge. I mean, Ginny, our CEO, says that blockchain will do for transactions what the internet did for communication. So obviously it's a big, giant statement. But if you think about the early days of the internet, in the advertising world, we knew that, for example, video could potentially be huge, and that you'd be able to run video ads or run video content, whatever. But no one had broadband, so it takes time. So there's some aspects of the technology that have to advance, as well as the use case and the usage for you to be able to hit true real-time transactions. But so far, what we've done is worked on a direct type of buys that still go through all the digital channels, so to speak. We're now working on something that scales that, which will be more programmatically based. It still won't handle the number of transactions and volume that when you talk about very high speed. But really, the biggest benefit of it is nobody really understands where all the players in the mix, that whole quote-unquote Lumascape, from DSP to the moats of the world and the servers and the exchanges and how much money is going to each piece. And what blockchain will provide is very clear transparency of that. It'll also provide a great way to clean up all the discrepancies that occur because of it. And lastly, it gives, from a reporting standpoint, a dashboard that makes it very easy to track where you're spending your money, how much is with this company or that company or this channel and this channel. In today's world, that's still manual. CMO comes to me and says, Babs, get me my spending on this company in China and this company. And I got to go to the agency. They got to, whatever, manually get it. Takes 2-3 weeks. And now, potentially, you can do that. And we're working on something that's going to come out fairly soon that you'll be able to do that right on the spot.
So let's just tease it out again a bit, because what you've talked about there is you've talked about applications and interfaces built on top of the blockchain. In other words, things that allow you to actually see the ledger as it's described and organize that view of the ledger in the way that you want it. Is my understanding that correctly?
That's right. I mean, so what IBM does is we build we build our blockchain through Hyperledger Fabric, and then that's kind of an enterprise level foundation of blockchain. And then there's you'll hear a bunch of different blockchain companies that are in payment or clearinghouses or identity. And what we think of those as application layers that sit on top of your enterprise blockchain that will help for a specific need. Similar to with an operating system, you'll have apps that do different things. You can kind of think about it from that standpoint.
So how many enterprise level blockchains are there? Is it IBM's and 10 others? Is it IBM's and 1,000 others? How's it organized?
So there are the typical companies that you would think are getting into that space, but we are by far and away the most advanced and have the most use cases today.
Right. So there is some kind of immutable record of all the blockchains that exist in the world.
That's right.
The blockchain that ate itself. And how do the economics of the blockchain work from the sort of supply side? So if a brand owner or an agency group or a media company wants to introduce blockchain-based technology into the way that it does business, how do the economics of that work?
I mean, there are a number of different models, some of which are still being written. I think, what we typically do for a given use case is we have a blockchain garage in New York, and we do a design thinking workshop in that garage where we really go through any given use case in very fine detail. For example, with the media one, we actually brought the person who is like the worker bee at the agency that goes through the buy, and all senior execs are sitting there and going through step by step what's happening, so that the technologists can understand that, but also for the team at large. So somebody, so a client or an anchor client will pay for that workshop. Then there's the build part, so you get a blueprint out of that, like an architectural design of what the blockchain will look. Then you technologically build that for 6 to 8 weeks. That has another cost to it. And then there's the actual running cost. So once you establish a blockchain and you're running your business on that, that's when there's a number of different business models. It could be pennies on the transaction. It could be, the anchor client pays and the members just participate. It could be that everyone shares. There's a whole bunch of different models.
So what we're going to see then is an end to the chaos in record keeping. We're going to see an end to dispute over ownership. We're going to see at last complete and understandable verification, and in the end it's going to be the blockchain that is the sheriff that comes to Dodge and the right place for a few good men to know who owns what.
Yeah, I think in the early stages we'll get to all that, which I think is great. I also think there's great opportunities in attribution, in identity, in tracking across devices, in, you know, for media companies, it's in understanding, you know, so like this is great, you know, so like like all these Trump videos where Alec Baldwin imitates, you know, and so on Saturday Night Live, it'll get like a 1 rating on that Saturday at that night, but then that video gets pushed all over the place. Sometimes it's easy to track, but sometimes it's ripped, sometimes it's placed on your own Facebook, and potentially with blockchain, you can actually track total viewership, unduplicated, of a given video. Same thing with rights management, music. So there's a number of aspects from that side. From the marketing side, I think the media buying certainly is going to be all the things you said cleaned up, and the targeting will be much better when we're leveraging identity. There's also the loyalty points that you could potentially track. There's the couponing. There's merchandising in store. There's a number of marketing applications. There's also hours, you know, labor that agencies could potentially track better and be able to monetize in a better way. So there's a number of opportunities, but like I said, in the early days of the internet, we knew there was a ton of things we could do, but you got to actually do it, test it, and then advance the technologies too.
Babs Rangaiah, or better known, Babs from the block. Thanks very much. We're out of here.